Last Christmas, all of my siblings were able to be home to go to church with Mom for what turned out to be the last time. We were at 7th Presbyterian Church on the south side of Chicago, where the congregation is about 32 people, and everybody sits on their own pews. So we filed into the old Lewis pew, now too small to hold all of us, but we took up 2 rows. And I'm fascinated that in my childhood church, these 2 stained glass windows are there. They're not Tiffany, but they're there. My little nephew, Rodney Jr., who we call RJ, was 7 years old. And he looked at the big picture, this picture, and said, "Hey, that's Big Jesus. And today is his birthday." And I said, yes, I'm just mystified at the theological wisdom of the little one. But then he pointed to the other one and he said, "When is the baby Jesus' birthday?" Like he wasn't really clear that the baby Jesus and the big Jesus were the same people. I think there's something fascinating about Christendom and the emphasis on the big Jesus and his crucifixion, let me say, on a Christmas Sunday. He died so we could have our sins forgiven. But I don't think there's enough emphasis on the life lived between the baby and the grown-up, death. In other words, what happened in the manger? What happened in the manger, our faith tells us that God showed up in an intervention. It wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. But there's something about the way God chooses to use babies to intervene in human history. Moses, a baby born to Levite slaves, a baby stuck in a basket and floated down a river to end up at the Pharaoh daughter's house. Moses means drawn from the water. And that baby grows up in between babyhood and adulthood, living in the Pharaoh's house, but grows up to be a person who delivers God's people from all that enslaved them. Broke the chains, unshackled them, dismantled the systems, pushed up against the giant power of Pharaoh, and won, liberating the captives. And then this baby who shows up not stuck in a basket, but shows up homeless and living in a feeding trough. This baby grows up to liberate the captives, to bring sight to the blind, not in his death, but in his living, seeing hungry people and feeding them. In his living, being willing to encounter the sick and heal them. In his living, taking women from the margins of society and putting them in the center of the ministry and daring to talk to them and daring to cross cultic borders to be near them. This one, in his living, being willing to be wrong. That story in the Bible about Jesus kind of calling a woman a dog because she wants healing for her daughters, that's not good television. But it's in the Bible teaching us about the humanity of this liberative one, the very real human one, who got tired and needed to take a nap, who got frustrated and needed to step away from his disciples, who kind of cursed out the religious leaders of his day out of a kind of human anxiety, and who had a temple tantrum when things didn't go well. This one, this human one, becomes divine day by day in relationship to the one who he called Father. His identity emerges as Son of God. His identity comes forth as King of Kings, as Prince of Princes, the one who will change the world. His identity emerges, but it starts out as a little baby sent into the world as an intervention in an empire that stretched from England all the way to Africa. An intervention in an empire where roads and chariots and swords and high taxes kept the poor people poor and the rich people rich. An intervention in a time where the conservative religious leaders, the religionists, let's call them, used their faith talk to wreak havoc on the rest of creation. Does that sound familiar to anybody? And God intervened in the pathos, in the chaos, just as God had intervened in the time of slavery when Israel was enslaved by Egypt. God intervened, heard the cries of God's people, and sent a little one, a vulnerable one. One so small, so helpless, so absolutely incapable of doing anything on his own that he needed all of the people around. It takes a village to raise a Christ. So I'm standing here thinking about RJ's daddy, Rodney Sr., who actually is the reason that I believe this story. Yes, I had heard all the stuff in Sunday school, and yes, I had read the Bible. But on a December day when my mom went to the hospital and I was 9 years old, and she went to go and give birth to this boy, this baby boy, and brought him home, and it was almost Christmas, and he was teeny tiny, vulnerable, needing diaper changed, might not take the bottle, absolutely helpless. His cries for help made the incarnation, the coming of God in the flesh, really real to me. Revealed to me in his body the miracle of every birth, the God presence in every life, and the way it calls us all, poor shepherds and rich wise men, wandering magi and hopeless poor people, calls us all to a sense of wonder. God can do anything. Can part seas, can heal broken hearts and broken bodies, can miraculously keep dying mothers alive 7 years past the death date, can emancipate slaves, can help people live with HIV/AIDS, will hear our prayers and answer. We're all called to the wonder of the intervention that is God's love in the manger. God's love in the manger. Now, I'm a girl with lots of theological degrees and lots of skepticism. But I'll tell you what I believe. I believe that God's love came all the way down. All the way down. In a way that we can't quite explain, in a way with which the gospel writers wrestle, in a mysterious way that is sometimes unfathomable, but I believe the miraculous presence of God in the children here, in Moses in the basket, in the child in the manger, and in you and me. I believe that when we look for magic, when we expect the miraculous, God will show it to us. And that there actually will be miracles when we believe.